Welcome to Decentralized Voices podcast. I'm excited to have Can from T1 Protocol as today's guest. In this episode, we'll dive into real-time proving, ways to enhance Ethereum's infrastructure, explore the power of trusted execution environments, and hear some wow insights from the A16Z crypto accelerator. Can, I'm happy to have you today. Please share some overview of your professional or maybe personal background.
Hi, Daria. It's good to be here. Thank you for having me on the show. I started getting into Bitcoin when I started grad school. That was like late 2014. I was doing my grad school MBA at MIT. And there was a big, Bitcoin movement at the time. There was an experiment where all undergrad students were given $100 worth of Bitcoin to see how they would spend it. I think a few months ago marked the 10th year anniversary of that. And that $100 was around like 20K or something like that. So that was my introduction. I dove into it. After graduation, I co-founded a company out of MIT called Enigma. We were focused on multi-party computation, a privacy-preserving computation technique to provide privacy-preserving smart contracts for Ethereum. This was 2017. And along the way, we realized that in a permissionless and adversarial setting, MPC is not really viable because there are some offline attack vectors or collusion vectors that you can't really detect. As early as 2018, we started exploring trusted execution environments. At the time, it was Intel SGX, and how we can use that to create private smart contracts for Ethereum. Then along the way, things changed. We pivoted. We launched Secret Network based on the work that we were doing. And Secret Network was a Cosmos SDK-based layer one. It is the first privacy-preserving smart contracting platform to date. I was one of the two co-founders at that company, led everything from product development to business use cases, all sorts of fundraising efforts. I left that 2021. I was burnt out, wanted to take some time off, and I took some time off, about 2 years. And when I wanted to get back into building again, I was surprised how fast things have moved and how much the ecosystem has changed. As I was dipping my toes into what to do, I realized that Flashbots have done a lot of great work with TEs and EVM. That was something that, I really missed when we were working with TEs because we had this cool tech, but it was in Cosmos land. I saw that Flashbots was able to finally run EVM inside a TE. They had Andrew Miller, who is, one of the leading figures in the TE research, collaborating with them. Then I did a research project with Flashbots, a grant with them, where I looked into the application design space, especially around DeFi that you can build with TEs and yeah, like that. I was convinced that we need a DEX that is running like an app chain, like on a TE, because it could create these fast proofs on T1 and be able to access layer one liquidity with cheap computations. And Flashbots was really interested in block building. Their focus is not going to allow me to build the things I'm interested in. Brainstorming sessions with my co-founder, Oris, who used to be an infra engineer at Scroll. We realized that, hey, this is actually more of a DeFi issue rather than a DEX issue. So we decided we should build T1 as a rollup that can create real-time proofs. What real-time proofs allow us to do is we can prove the state of T1 back to Ethereum within 12 seconds or in the next L1 block. So interacting with T1, the rollup, and going back to Ethereum feels almost like you're interacting with a smart contract on Ethereum. There is no delays in withdrawals. There is no liquidity fragmentation. And we think this is really important for DeFi projects in general.
Thank you very much. So can you share more details about T1 and what specific challenges it overcomes in the Ethereum's infrastructure?
Rollups have scaled Ethereum. However, it also, fragmented users, liquidity, like this rollup fragmentation issue everyone knows about it. Even if they don't, there's so many resources. So no need to get into that. Basically, what we're saying is we can create a rollup design based on real-time proving that can act as an interoperability layer. And what I mean by that is rollups have their sequencers. They run centrally right now, and either they create zero knowledge proofs or have this optimistic challenge window during which their state can be challenged by anyone and eventually finalizes on the L1. What we're saying is those methods take too long. Let's do like another way of proving T1 state on the L1. And we're initially relying on trusted execution environments and then building defense in depth, which we can talk more about later, so that we can do these proofs every 12 seconds. So from the view of Ethereum, these things are instant. Because we're leveraging TEs are like you can get these things on cloud today or by bare metals. It's accessible, but it's also not your Raspberry Pi. Because we have this more robust hardware that's running, one thing we can do is we can run rollup full nodes inside our node infrastructure. Obviously, there's a limitation to how many rollups we can run, but that's a different discussion. Running a rollup full node inside a T1 node allows us to read that rollup state because we're re-executing everything that goes into the sequencer. And in a world, we're re-executing that everything goes to a sequencer. So that allows us to verify, let's say, arbitrum base or optimism state within T1 and be able to prove that back to L1.
How does T1 protocol's approach to scaling differ from other L2s?
L2s, anything that's off-chain, and by off-chain, I mean anything that's not Ethereum. UniX is off-chain, CalSwap is off-chain in terms of like execution matching. Rollups are off-chain, L2s are off-chain. I think like what's different in all of these is how do you prove to the L1 that your execution is accurate. As I was like alluding to earlier, zero knowledge rollups use zero knowledge proofs. Optimistic rollups use fraud proofs. We're using TE proofs in our first version. What that means is we're running our sequencer inside a trusted execution environment. Trusted execution environment is a secure enclave where you attest to the code that's running inside it, and the hardware can create proofs attesting to the fact that, hey, this is the bytecode that's running in here, it's untempered, all that. And the nice thing about this is we can generate these attestations or proofs super fast, super quick. So that's like primarily how we differ from different scaling solutions. There is keys are a great path forward, but they are not the solution to all the problems. You have potential TEs have been exploited in the past and they will be in the future. There are certain known attack vectors. If people have physical access to the TE, they can tamper with it. And then there's always this reliance on a manufacturer. What if, say, Intel or AMD puts in a backdoor and all that stuff. So the idea, we want to make this permissionless. We want to allow anyone who wants to run a TE and participate in the sequencing to be able to do that. And when you make things permissionless in an adversarial setting, these attack vectors, become more of an issue. Whether it's physical access, I think it's mostly physical access. The trade-off is either require trust to a foundation or an operating company, or who's running a sequencer, or do this permissionless thing. We want to be permissionless eventually, and then we need to find a way to protect ourselves with attack vector. And what we want to do is we want to do re-execution across different nodes and a consensus that needs some cryptoeconomic security. I guess like the reward you can get from attacking the system exceeds the cryptoeconomic security, and attack becomes economically viable. And in these kind of systems, really the risk is withdrawals from T1 to say L1. So what we need to do is, let's say every time the cumulative withdrawals reach, say, 50% of the cryptoeconomic security budget, or like 80%, like whatever your risk tolerance is, we need to find a way to verify that all those cumulative transactions from 0 to 50% or 70%, whatever, were actually accurate. And the way we do that is by running a zero knowledge proof. When that zero knowledge proof checks, we know for a fact that those transactions have been accurate or true. And then we can reset our security budget and then allow more withdrawals to happen, filling slowly towards the crypto economic security budget. The reason why I'm saying this is we believe at the end of the day, users will want to use the cheapest solution at an acceptable security trade-off, right? You could run everything in a centralized server and prove things to L1 if you trust a centralized server, and that would be very cheap. However, that requires a lot of trust. We believe that the model that we are creating is designed with this, what is an acceptable security model that allows us to achieve the cheapest cost. For example, a lot of people say, oh yeah, but zero knowledge proving will get super fast in the next few years. What do you do about that? Well, zero knowledge proof generation is slow and expensive today. Even if it gets fast, you will need to run a ton of GPUs and it's going to be expensive. And I think this is the way to keep things both efficient, fast, and cheap.
Can you explain how T1 protocol's real-time proofs function and what is their value for developers and end users, if there are any?
The idea is real-time proving means being able to prove something back to Ethereum in 12 seconds because Ethereum moves in 12-second increments, which are called the Ethereum blocks. We are using TEs and the defense in depth that I described, which is AVS and crypto economic security, plus periodic zero knowledge proofs to achieve real-time proving. What this means for developers is you can have a dApp that is fast and cheap, like a Rollup dApp, but that is also able to access L1 liquidity because coming back in or moving back and forth between the L1 and T1 just takes one L1 block.
What is trusted execution environment? How do you use it in your architecture, and why this topic is so popular and hot now? Because many projects discuss and investors invest in such projects.
Yeah, I don't know why they're hot right now. I've been working with them since 2018. They existed. They were in your iPhone fingerprint readers. It's not a new thing. I think there was a lot of skepticism within the crypto community against trusted execution environments. You can use trusted execution environments for two reasons. One is privacy, and the other one is verifiable computations. What we've seen, I feel like in the space in the past years is zero knowledge proving is being used for scaling or verifiable computations. There is this whole narrative about how blockchain applications need privacy. I agree, but also having worked with privacy preserving smart contracts, I think we're not there yet because we still need to fix bigger issues. People don't care about privacy if that means that they're gonna have a worse UX.
Yeah,
and I guess what I'm trying to get to is to achieve privacy with cryptography doesn't make sense today because it's super slow. Things like homomorphic encryption and multi-party computation, which gives you private shared state, which is required for things like games like chess or having an order book that's fully private. Those kind of things don't really work today. So I think that realization could have been one of the reasons that has reduced the stigma, I will say, against TEs. So I guess this is why it's more popular today. And I think, we are in an industry where people follow certain people. I think influential people like Andrew Miller paying attention to it.
Yeah, for sure.
All of a sudden makes people be this is someone who knows their shit. If they're pro this thing, maybe I should pay attention to it. So, there's a bit of a herd mentality in every kind of,
yes.
situation. So that's kind of why I think it's being used more. What was the first part of your question?
I wanted you to describe more the tech value of these trusted execution environments. And by the way, you mentioned that they were not liked by the community. So why? Because For example, I don't know why they're not liked by community and by Ethereum community. Can you share more about this?
There is trust that's required in the manufacturer, right? And we are trying to build fully trustless systems. So I think that's like that sums it all. But we have to be practical, right? And we all care about this technology getting adoption. I think it's practical to use these things in a safe manner where the trust vector is maximally like minimized or like reduced. So I think that's why people don't like it. Like I could speculate, but in the past, like there would be this attack, and the attack would be on on an older version of the hardware. Like no one would really look into what happened in the attack, and they're like, oh, see, SGX, being hacked again. Like it's just like it's easy to hate on things. And maybe a part of it is like if T's work, if really all this fancy cryptography goes useless, and a lot of people are researchers in this field, and they are either emotionally or somehow vested in these things to work. I'm not saying like those are bad and T's are good, but like that is a friction point.
Can you please share your opinion on what can be improved in the current Ethereum infrastructure?
Yeah, I think rollups composability must be improved in the current infrastructure because we have these islands. A lot of people are working towards this goal and from different angles, but like at the end of the day, for a user coming in, should all let me put it this way. When I'm calling an Uber today, I don't care whether Uber is run on AWS or Google Cloud or whatever. I just care about going from A to B. And that's like where we need to come to. And that's not where we're at today. I think that is like the main improvement that we need.
So what are the use cases for T1 protocol? Can you share more examples about how developers can benefit from T1 protocol?
Yeah, sure. So what we're doing is we're creating real-time proving, and that allows us to prove something that's happening on T1 back to Ethereum really fast. That we're primarily building a rollup. So we can have DeFi applications that can prove state back to L1 and access L1 liquidity super easily. And in addition, we're realizing that what we're building has implications beyond just like native T1 applications. One thing that we've been interested in lately is intents and this initiative called Open Intents Framework that's being led by the Ethereum Foundation. Let's say, Daria, you want to move funds from Arbitrum to Base. You put your funds in escrow on Arbitrum. A market maker on the other side, or called solver, sends you the funds that you want or need on Base. And upon proving both you put your funds on escrow and the solver paid you on the destination chain, your escrow funds are released to the solver. Today, the most popular intent bridge is a cross. I think they're doing like $50-60 million a day, last I checked. And, they have this optimistic verification process where they have to wait for an hour to allow anyone to dispute whether something was wrong. So what we can do is, I mentioned earlier that T1 is able to run full nodes of what we call partner rollups. So we can run an Arbitrum node, we can run a Base node. Because we run these nodes, we can read from these states in our node infrastructure, and we can basically verify that you deposit your funds to escrow and the solver paid back to you. Prove that back to the L1 and allow the solver to get paid in 1 minute. I recently posted a video demo of this happening on my Twitter, and we will publicly launch this in the next few weeks so people can play with it. But when a solver is able to get paid in, a minute versus 60, then they need much less money to make the same amount of revenue. And they're able to they're able to basically give better pricing to users who are interested in bridging. So this kind of like real-time proving, the most important is improves bridging costs for users because it makes the whole process more profitable for the market makers. That's like one use case, right? Another use case that we're interested in is right now, like a lot of people are talking about like, I don't know how to even pronounce this, but DeFi AI, like DeFi AI agents. And what that really is if you like, layer below the jargon is like automating things. Like it's not an agent like an LLM, it's an agent like, okay, automate my DeFi strategies. We're working on an idea or like putting some primitives or putting a demo that would allow us to do the following. Let's say you put your USDC on Aave on Arbitrum to earn yields. Our hypothesis, and I would love for your viewers to either validate or disagree with me, is if you are earning yields on Aave, Arbitrum with your USDC, you don't really care whether your USDC is on Aave Arbitrum or Aave Optimism or Aave Base. You just want to get the best yield. And today, like, how do you move between them? You need to bridge, you need to withdraw, you need to bridge, you need to deposit, you need to monitor all the time what's going on and then take all these manual actions. Now, let's get back to T1 architecture. Because we said we can run these rollup full nodes in our node infrastructure and we can read the state from these chains, we know inside T1 what the Aave USDC yields is on Arbitrum, Base, and Optimism. So we can help you create a vault on T1 that would, based on this input, move your USDC between different rollups and deposit it on your behalf in an automated and non-custodial way, so you can get the best yield. And like, I think this is relevant for end users. This is relevant for builders who have any sort of yields or lending applications. So like that's another use case that we're interested in.
Thank you very much for great explanations. Let's discuss business part. And I'm curious about your ETHDenver experience this year. So what did you learn there? What are the current narratives of Ethereum?
Yeah, well, I haven't been to the main event. We just did a bunch of meetings and then hosted our own side events. I think the key takeaways for me is pre-confirmations are coming. And pre-confirmations I think are cool because in a lot of cross L1 rollup use cases, L1 reorgs is a big issue. Pre-confirmations are really important because it allows you to basically bypass L1 reorg risks, and it can make a bunch of cross-chain use cases where we're looking into using pre-confirmations as well because L1 reorgs also impact T1. So that's one, I think, thing that comes to mind. I think zero knowledge proof generation is getting faster. That's what I've heard from a ton of people. I think Succinct is leading the way there. And then we ran a workshop, which I think was interesting, where we co-hosted this with Espresso Labs. Now they're building a coordination layer. But I think like what we wanted to do, and I really enjoyed this, was there's all this talk on crypto Twitter about like base rollup and synchronous composability and how it's going to be revolutionary. And I agree, synchronous composability or an end state where interacting across Ethereum and all the rollups feels like 2020 cheap Ethereum days. Like that is super cool. However, one problem I have with this is like everyone paints this rosy picture, but like it is very complex to get there. There are a lot of details that get we don't pay attention to discussing those details because discussing those details makes it obviously visible how hard it is to get there. No one who is like really pushing this hard is engaging, even though we tag them. So like, let's hold a session and let's actually go through and discuss how synchronous composability is going to work. And I think like the hot takeaway from that is like no application really, really, really needs synchronous composability. It makes things better, but at what cost and at what time frame? So I think that was a hot take and an interesting workshop that we did. We had people from Espresso, we had people from Bridges, Accelar, Squid. We had people from Spire, which is like the leading base rollup. It's a base rollup company. We had people from Tyco. They're building their own like base rollup. We had people from L2 Beats. And yeah, I think like that's how conferences should be. Like.
That's great, because I saw many posts from people attending the main event, and they were like super... they weren't inspired, let's say. Yeah, so the current mood is very different, like builders mood and the mood of people who expected something more and something bigger till this time.
I have been going to ETHDenver. I believe the first year was 2019, and it was just a hackathon where, at the time we were called Enigma. We hosted a prize. Next to us was Chainlink. Next to us was Off-Chain Labs. Like they were not Arbitrum yet. Only the talks you could give was like half an hour talk about like how your tech could be used. Like that's the kind of events I like. But now what we have is, in the event area, you have a Tesla Cybertruck, a McLaren car, like covered in Doge stickers, like Doge chain. Like that's not the reason why at least I am building in the space. So I kind of like, the only reason I went to the main event was to do a podcast, and like that's it.
Can you share please insights about your participation in the Ethics in That accelerator, how it was for you, and what did you get from this accelerator?
Sure. Yeah, we did the program last fall. It was their New York cohort. And I was honestly quite skeptical, like being a second-time founder, like, oh, like accelerator, like I've done this before, I don't need it. However, I would say that, access to the A16Z crypto team is like extremely valuable. We knew that there's probably a better way to do this. And during I think it was 10 weeks, like during that time, like, we have access to the researchers there. We're able to sit down, we're able to whiteboard for hours. And that has been like hugely, hugely beneficial for us. Yeah, I think to me that was like the biggest value, right? And also like you are in a cohort with like a lot of cool projects, smart founders, and it helps you not only tap into the A16Z network, but also like tap into this cohort and build your own founder friends. I'd been out of action for like more than 2 years, and like things change over the 2 years. People I started with like mostly don't work anymore. So it was like very fun for me to like, see new people coming in, building, and just like engage.
Yeah, I had an episode with Marek from Willair, and I also asked him about his experience at ASICs in that accelerator. And he told me that there were many infrastructure projects and less DeFi projects. Why are less DeFi projects and more infra and similar to infra projects like tools, for example? What can you say?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if I like take that as a given and build a narrative around that. I mean, yeah, there were like infra projects, but there were also gaming projects, like they were AR, VR projects. So there's a bunch, I guess. There were a lot of cross-chain, like intent kind of projects, which I would like, classify them as DeFi. I don't know, maybe infra is still interesting. Maybe we still need infra. I wouldn't read too much into the combination of the cohorts.
I know that you got funded after this cohort from ASICs and that. Can you share about this funding and how, like, what the plan for this money?
Yeah, I mean, like we're building. We have a team of 8. That money goes to paying them, and yeah, that's the whole focus. With a small round, we'll do another round in a few months. But yeah, that's basically it.
Do you have any plans to support developers in building applications? Maybe you plan to sponsor sponsor some hackathons or you give developer grants?
Our focus right now is to launch our DevNet within the next month. And that will be like the first meaningful point of contact with the broader developer community. We have had people building applications, mostly like a private group up until this point. Like grants and hackathons. Obviously, I think hackathons are good. In the past, we've sponsored each global hackathons. You get access to great people there. I think it's a bit early for us to think about that. Like whether grants are good return on value or not, I'm not sure. I've mixed experiences. I think we'll need to figure this out.
What can you recommend to people interested in TEs and ZK and other related topics to start learning?
Nowadays, there's so much content out there. This is going to be one of the million podcasts that are out there. I would say whatever your focus area is, identify who really matters in that space, whose opinions are relevant or make sense, and just start with that. And I would encourage people to have more of a problem focus. You may be interested in ZK, but why are you interested in ZK? Because I think we have a lot of people who are just interested in things because they're cool.
Uh-huh.
But there's nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong. But I think identifying what you have a problem with, I think is a great way to get started, because then from that point on, you explore what the solution space is and understand why, you should learn about ZK rather than just I want to learn about ZK. I think that would be my advice. But there's so much stuff, depending on your level of technical understanding. If you're super technical and want to get in, I operate in the Ethereum ecosystem. I don't like the word maxi, but I believe this is the layer one that best embodies the ethos and the values that we're building for.
Uh-huh.
So if you're really technical, go into ETH research, ETH magicians, and see what people are working on. If you're into more the application layer, use crypto applications or use dApps to see what's working, what's not working, and have a thesis on what should be improved, and then focus on that. There's a ton of resources everywhere online. Follow Andrew Miller on Twitter. He puts out great content there. Flashbots is doing a lot of good, T-related research. If you, plug into those channels, you will find many more relevant projects. These are the things that just came to mind. No need, I'm forgetting other good people as well. If you're into zero knowledge proofs, I think one thing I started following when I started getting back into things was what is A16Z crypto putting out there resource wise? And they have pieces on zero knowledge proving. Obviously their content caters a bit also towards promoting the work they do internally and their portfolio projects. But it gives you an understanding of who are the relevant players in different verticals. I think podcast wise, I look at Bankless.
Uh-huh.
I'm in the Rollup space. I tune into Rollup. I think it's called the Rollup, and you can go through their list and see what guests are relevant to what you're trying to learn. And that's a great place to start. I really do think for more technical people who are interested in Ethereum, just going on ETH research, reading Vitalik's posts is a good understanding of where things are today, where are we trying to go. So there's a lot of discussion on scaling VL1, whether it's the data layer, which are the blobs, or whether it's execution. And there are different ways that these things can be scaled. If you're really technical, you can go to you can read Dankrad's work on PeerDAS. If you are into scaling, Justin puts out really good content. Justin Drake, by the way, about native rollups, how to get there. I think there are tabs that you can navigate scaling and rollups and whatnot.
Thanks. It's great answer. Can, thank you very much for this great conversation. It was insightful, and I'm sure that our listeners know more about ETHs, about Rollups, and about the Ethereum ecosystem, because that was our main goal. Guys, I'll leave all the links under this video, so you can follow Can, you can follow T1, and learn more about the project and about this field in general. Follow me, and see you in the next videos.
Daria, thank you so much for having me on the show and giving me the platform. I hope your listeners enjoyed this as much as I've enjoyed doing this. I want to leave with, at T1, we're trying to be very pragmatic, see that there are problems in Ethereum application use cases today, and we're very focused to think about how we can improve existing use cases that already have traction. And that really determines our development roadmap. We're going to be launching our DevNet soon, within the next month. Play with it, give us feedback. We have open job positions on our website, which is t1protocol.com. And yeah, let's build a better Ethereum together.
Yeah, thank you. It was great. So guys, you know what to do, and see you next time. Bye.